So in today's video, we're going to paint a perfect half avocado. The process is suitable for any skill level, and it's a great project for practicing your shading. This time, the watercolor effect is coming from the Backrun paper texture, and for the brushes, I'm just using the ones in the regular watercolor kit. Now, I've already placed in this sketch, and I've put it up here as the very top layer, and you can download this exact sketch with the color palette in the description below. Just make sure you set the transparency to multiply. And to start painting, I'll just select a layer below the paper texture, and I'm going to use the abstract round brush, and I'm just going to fill in this kind of concentric green tone using the swatches, just so it goes from dark to a kind of yellowish, a light green in the middle. Next, I want to evenly blend the inside of the avocado, and to do that, I'm going to use the selection tool set to freehand, and I'll just select the inner bit here. Then I'll feather out that selection just a little bit. Then if I go to my adjustments, Gaussian blur, I can tap and drag and kind of adjust the level of blur here. And I think that looks pretty good. Next, I'm going to select this darker green tone, and I'm going to change my brush to the hard edge one. And I'm going to just go along the outer edge here, trying to follow the sketch as best as I can. And I'm trying to make it pretty uneven. There we go. And at this point, we've got a lot of color kind of going beyond the edge here. So to fix that, I'm going to use the eraser brush set to the fine liner pen. And I'm just going to go along the edge here and clean it up a little bit. Next, I'm going to select this brown tone here. Same brush, same hard edge brush. And I'm going to fill in the stem. After that, I'm going to switch to the water blender brush. And I'm going to do a couple of creative blending tricks here. So the first one is, I'm going to blend the stem and the green bit, so the green bit is kind of going inside there. And then I'll pull that brown a little bit out along the edges. There we go. And then also, it's optional, but I really like it if in a couple of areas I pull out this darker green. And at this point, we can move on and do the seed. And I'm going to do that on its own layer. And I'm going to use the same brown color that we did the stem with, but I'll switch back to the abstract round and fill this one out. Now this next step is pretty optional, but I want to add a scratchy texture to the pit. So there's a default brush in Procreate under the Drawing tab. It's called Freycinet. And I'm going to use a kind of lighter version of that brown. Maybe a smaller size here. And I'm just going to go over this to give it a very light scratchy tone. And I'll shift the color a couple times. Now the shading on the pit here is a little bit complicated, and I'm going to do all of it with the selection tool set to freehand. The first thing I'll do is add a highlight up here, and I'll feather it out. Then I can go to hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll just raise the brightness there. Now for the shadows, again, I'll use the freehand selection tool, and I'll do a big crescent shaped shadow on that side. I'll feather it out as well. But this time, I'll just darken it. Then I'll do one more dark shadow in a slightly different place and much closer to the edge. I'll feather it out a tiny bit, and I'm going to darken it so it's almost going to black, but not quite. I think in this case, the highlight could be a little bit stronger, so I'm going to do that again. And I think that looks a lot better. And now to finish this one up, I'm going to turn off the sketch. Then I'm going to merge the seed here with the avocado slice so everything's on one layer. And I'm going to go over it one last time using the water blender and try to make some of these more boring areas a little more interesting by pulling in the darker green a little bit. And there we go, this avocado slice is all done, and here's a look at the final result. And that pretty much wraps it up. If you think I've earned it, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're looking for another easy watercolor tutorial for Procreate, I think you'll really like this one up here where I paint a watermelon slice.